What's up, guys? This is Chris from DraftDashboard.com.
Here are my DFS picks for NFL Week 3 sleepers and studs.
These picks apply for DraftKings and FanDuel. Before I get started, please drop a like on this video and hit that red subscribe button
And hit that bell icon
so you don't miss our new videos.
In this video, I'm going to give you a sleeper pick and my favorite stud at each position.
And if you stick around to the very end of this video, we'll use the Draft Dashboard tools to make a DFS lineup using the picks we just made.
Oh, and good news, guys. Make sure to stay tuned to the very end of this video because we removed the box that was popping up and blocking the lineup. So now you can see a full lineup using these picks that we made in this video if you stay to the very end. Okay, guys, NFL Week 3. Let's take a look at the quarterback position. So there's a few studs in really good spots here in Week 3. You got Kyler Murray, Lamar Jackson, Russell Wilson, but the stud that I like the most this week is Patrick Mahomes from the Kansas City Chiefs playing the LA Chargers, who have a pretty good defense overall, and they've been pretty good versus opposing quarterbacks, but Patrick Mahomes has averaged 29.2 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 3 rush attempts per game. He's going to be about 10% owned, projected at 24.4 fantasy points here in Week 3. He's $8,700 FanDuel salary and $500 less on DraftKings. So Vegas thinks there's going to be 54.5 points scored in this game, with the Kansas City Chiefs favored by 6.5. So I like that this game is within a touchdown. I just got a feeling that Patrick Mahomes is going to put up one of those 3 or 4 touchdown games here. He's been fantastic to start the season, and his ownership is coming in right around the same as Kyler Murray and Lamar Jackson. Now, although Kyler Murray and Lamar Jackson have the better matchups this week, I still think Patrick Mahomes can score more fantasy points. So I like Patrick Mahomes here versus the LA Chargers. Okay, my sleeper pick at the quarterback position for NFL Week 3 is Jared Goff from the Detroit Lions playing the Baltimore Ravens, who have the worst defense overall, and they give up the 4th most fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks. Jared Goff has averaged 24.7 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 3.5 rush attempts per game. Now on FanDuel, Jared Goff is not even going to be 1% owned, so you're getting him at super low ownership. He's only projected at 16.3 fantasy points here in Week 3. But I think he can score 20 fantasy points or more in this one. He's $7,100 FanDuel salary, and he's $1,900 less on DraftKings. Vegas thinks there's going to be 50 points scored in this game, with the Detroit Lions trailing by 8. So I like this pick because Jared Goff has a couple of good pass catchers in Cephas Quintez and his stud tight end TJ Hawkinson. And this should be a passing game script while the Detroit Lions play from behind. So Jared Goff could get a ton of pass attempts in this game, and it's supposed to be a high-scoring game, and it's a fantastic matchup. You're getting him at super low ownership, so I like Jared Goff here versus the Baltimore Ravens.
Before I continue with the picks, I'm excited today because we added a new contest for everyone watching.
If you want to enter the drawing for $25 PayPal,
all you need to do is like this video, hit that subscribe button, and make a quick comment below to be entered into the drawing. We'll reply to a random comment and let you know that you won.
And we'll send you $25 PayPal.
So it's that easy, and we pick a new winner every Saturday and announce them in our video. So get your comment in now so I can add another entry for you.
Okay, let's take a look at the running back position. My Week 3 running back stud is Derrick Henry from the Tennessee Titans playing the Indianapolis Colts, who have the 9th worst defense overall, and they're middle of the pack defending opposing running backs. Derrick Henry has averaged 27 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 26 rush attempts per game and 5 pass targets per game. So monster volume. Now, he only scored 9 fantasy points in week 1, but he came back with a vengeance in week 2, scored 45 fantasy points. So he's going to be about 19% owned, on the field for 70% of the snaps, projected at 18.3 fantasy points here in week 3. He's $9,700 FanDuel salary and $1,100 less on DraftKings. Vegas thinks there's going to be 48 points scored in this game, with the Tennessee Titans favored by 5.5. So you got to love that volume that he's getting, an average of 26 rush attempts and 5 pass targets a game, averaging over 31 touches per game. And the Titans could take the lead here versus the Colts, so Derrick Henry could get a ton of work in this one. So I like Derrick Henry here versus the Indianapolis Colts. Okay, my sleeper pick at the running back position for NFL Week 3 is Melvin Gordon. Now, I've picked this guy a couple of times. I picked him in Week 1 or Week 2. He's been a sleeper pick favorite of mine. He hasn't really popped off yet, but I think he has a good chance here. Melvin Gordon from the Denver Broncos playing the New York Jets, who have a pretty good defense overall, but they give up the 7th most fantasy points to opposing running backs. So Melvin Gordon has averaged 13.6 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 12 rush attempts per game and 2.5 pass targets per game. He's only going to be about 2% owned, projected at 11.3 fantasy points here in week 3, and he's only $6,000 FanDuel salary, and he's $500 less on DraftKings. Vegas thinks there's going to be 41.5 points scored in this game, and they have the Broncos favored by 10.5. So this is a good running back matchup, and I think this is going to be a running game script as the Denver Broncos take the lead over the Jets. Melvin Gordon, I'm expecting him to get at least 15 touches in this one, and of course find the end zone. So I like Melvin Gordon here versus the New York Jets.
Real quick, guys, I got great news. For a limited time, we're offering a full 30-day trial to Draft Dashboard. You can try all the tools for NFL. NBA is right around the corner. This is a great time to get in and try everything for 1 month. The tools are all about saving research time. You can see the last 3 games, the fantasy points per game, the targets they got per game, so you can see how involved they are in the offense, the rushes they got per game. Seeing all this stuff on one screen helps you save time and make better picks. Oh, and if you're tired of doing research every day, we just added a cheat sheet that shows hand-picked plays for the slate. No confusing stat lines, no headaches, just a simple cheat sheet that shows the absolute best players for your lineups.
Okay, let's take a look at the wide receiver position. My wide receiver stud for NFL Week 3 is Cooper Kupp from the LA Rams playing the Tampa Bay Bucks, who have the 6th worst defense overall, and they give up the 4th most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. Cooper Kupp has averaged 26.3 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 10.5 pass targets per game, and he's going to be about 18% owned. He's been on the field for a whopping 97% of the snaps, touched the ball 20% of that time. He's projected at 15.6 fantasy points here in week 3. He's $7,900 FanDuel salary, and he's $1,100 less on DraftKings. So I like that DraftKings price. Now, Vegas thinks there's going to be 56 points scored in this game, with the Rams trailing by 1.5. So you got a super high scoring game, a great matchup, and a guy who's getting monster passing volume. So I like Cooper Kupp here versus the Tampa Bay Bucks. Okay, my sleeper pick at the wide receiver position is Michael Pittman Jr. from the Indianapolis Colts playing the Tennessee Titans, who have the 2nd worst defense overall, and they give up the absolute most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. Michael Pittman Jr. has averaged 10.4 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 8 pass targets per game. He's only going to be about 3% owned, and he's been on the field for 94% of the snaps. He got 12 pass targets last week, scored 16 fantasy points. He's projected at 10.2 fantasy points here in week 3, and he's only $5,600 FanDuel salary and $100 less on DraftKings. Vegas thinks there's going to be 48 points scored in this game, with the Colts trailing by 5.5. So you got a passing game script, a fantastic matchup, and a target monster at low ownership, and the price is right. So I like Michael Pittman Jr. here versus the Tennessee Titans. Okay, moving on to the tight end position. My tight end stud for week 3 is Mark Andrews from the Baltimore Ravens playing the Detroit Lions, who have the 4th worst defense overall, and they give up the 10th most fantasy points to opposing tight ends. Mark Andrews, he's only averaged 5.9 fantasy points per game on the season. He's getting an average of 5 pass targets per game, but he's on the field for 78% of the snaps, and he's going to be about 11% owned, projected at 10.5 fantasy points here in week 3. He's $6,000 FanDuel salary and $1,000 less on DraftKings. Vegas thinks there's going to be 50 points scored in this game, with the Ravens favored by 8. So you got a pretty high scoring game here, a good matchup, and I just think this is the week that Mark Andrews scores double-digit fantasy points. So I like Mark Andrews here versus the Detroit Lions. Okay, my sleeper pick at the tight end position is Kyle Pitts from the Atlanta Falcons playing the New York Giants, who have the 7th worst defense overall, and they give up the 3rd most fantasy points to opposing tight ends. Kyle Pitts has averaged 7.5 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 7 pass targets per game. He's been on the field for 74% of the snaps, and he's only going to be about 4% owned, projected at 10.1 fantasy points here in week 3. He's $6,200 FanDuel salary and $1,300 less on DraftKings. So he was a chalk bust in week 1. He had a better performance in week 2, but I think he's going to have his standout performance here in week 3. And Vegas thinks there's going to be 47.5 points scored in this game, with the Atlanta Falcons trailing by 3. It's a great matchup, and I think Kyle Pitts is going to show off his talent here this week. So I like Kyle Pitts here versus the New York Giants.
If you want to try all these daily fantasy tools for yourself, click the link in the description below this video, or just go to draftdashboard.com. You can use our DFS lineup optimizer to build quality lineups using our picks and your own custom player pool. Click the link in the description below this video and try all these daily fantasy tools right now. Thanks so much for watching. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit that bell icon so you can get instant updates whenever we post a new video. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, please smiggity smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Oh, and please comment below with your favorite player for this NBA slate. I love to hear what you guys have to think. Thanks again, and good luck.